Now, over the years of travelling around Britain and visiting ancient sites, I sometimes discover these relics of our past nestled in old overgrown areas of our graveyards. And on these occasional visits, I'm always drawn to the spectacular and often unique ancient yew trees that more often than not seem to accompany these ancient artifacts. And it got me wondering, why are there so many ancient yews in so many of our old British graveyards? They are probably the most common and recognisable tree found in them. So as I researched, I became more and more captivated with this astounding tree. Now, discovered yew trees are worshipped as well as feared, and Britain's ancient yews are amongst the oldest living things on the planet. And every yew tree is unique, and each has a story to tell. Part of the reason they're so common in churchyards is the yew's ability to thrive in almost any soil, so long as the drainage is okay. And they are very slow growing and can live for millennia, and are extremely hardy trees. They can tolerate harsh weather, strong winds and pollution, living longer than any other British native tree species. And it's thought yew trees can reach 3,000 years old plus. And I guess there's not much competition from other trees in graveyards compared to woodlands. Churchyards offer more light and space and are usually protected from grazing animals and damage from humans. Now, a good example of long-lived yew trees is in Llangeiniu in Wales. Now, this tree lives in the churchyard of St Diggins Church in the village. Although it is very hard to determine the age of yew trees, the churchyard gate holds a certificate from the Yew Tree Campaign 2002, and it's signed by David Bellamy. And it states that according to all the data we have at hand, the tree is dated between 4,000 and 5,000 years old. Now, yew trees send out shoots from their roots to create fresh growth. They can also germinate from a branch reaching to the ground, and there are examples of two trunks growing close together fused to form a large joined tree. And male and female yew flowers occur on separate trees, and the red berries develop only on female trees. Now, some of the common stories and myths I've discovered in my research are that yew trees were planted near churchyards because they are echoes of our pagan past, or that they deter cattle from disturbing burial grounds due to their poisonous nature, or the most popular, that they considered as a source of making English longbows. Since pagan times, yews have been associated with death and the journey of the soul from this life to the next. And the Druids also planted it close to their temples and monuments, possibly to use as rituals and for ceremonial tools, and the staffs of course. And many churches are surrounded by several yew trees, which could only have been a sacred grove or a place of worship for the Druids. And the Druids believed in reincarnation of sorts, so yew trees were seen as being immortal, able to grow their branches down to the earth to form new trees, which often twist together surrounding the original trunk. And as old branches die, new life can form within them. And the name of the island Iona in Scotland probably derived from Ioia, the Pictish word for yew. And the Celts considered it a symbol of death, and as it lived for such a long time, they thought it a sacred tree and possibly represented the tree of life. And the giant evergreen tree at the Temple of Uppsala, sacred to the Vikings, was thought to be an ancient yew tree. And one of the world's oldest surviving wooden artifacts is a yew spearhead, estimated to be around 400,000 years old, found in 1911 at Clacton-on-Sea in the UK. The yew was also sacred to Hecate, the Greek goddess of death, witchcraft and necromancy, and was said to be the liberator of souls after death. Now, her yew tree is believed to root into the mouths of the dead in order to remove the soul, and was said to help purify the dead as they entered the underworld of Hades. Now, could this be why in England it is thought that yew trees were planted on the graves of plague victims to protect and purify the dead? Which I witnessed in Ireham in Derbyshire, the famous plague village, yews grown out of graves. As I've explained, yews had a sacred role before the rise of Christianity, and many churches were built on the sites of so-called pagan temples, which explains a lot, as Christians and pagan imagery and beliefs were often overlapped, or the church absorbed the sites to help it convert locals to Christianity. Now, I think it was Pope Gregory who suggested taking advantage of this so that places of pagan worship could slowly absorb them into Christian churches. And as so many yew trees are over 1,500 years old, they must have grown there before Christianity arrived at their locations. And as there are at least 500 churchyards in England which contain yew trees older than the buildings themselves, it speaks for itself. And another piece of evidence I found which may support this is the fact that the Romans called one British tribe the people of the yew, after the places where they worshipped. Now, yew also suggests rebirth and resurrection to the Christian Church, as it's a coniferous evergreen tree, and the heart of the tree is red while its sap is white, symbolising the blood and body of Christ. And royalty often use yew woods in their staffs and other regalia due to this Christian symbolism, and they think it represents power. All yew trees contain a poison that would harm or kill cattle that graze on them, so it may have been for practical reasons that planting yews in churchyards continued, a good reason to keep livestock out of graveyards, thus helping to preserve the holy ground and graves. And it's highly recommended not to sleep under yew trees, as even the ground can become poisonous underneath the trees. Not much vegetation tends to grow under them either, but it could be partly due to the lack of light under the thick foliage. Now, the poison of the yew actually has a positive. In Gloucestershire, at the Bathurst estate, it's shielded by one of the largest yew hedges in the world, and the prunings are used to make compounds used in chemotherapy. Unbelievably, two of the most useful chemotherapy drugs are actually derived from yew trees. Now, the yew tree was said to be vital for medieval soldiers, as yew's strong flexible branches were favoured for longbows, which create powerful weapons with a long range, to 250 metres, and could pierce chainmail and armour with the right arrowheads. And from 1252 onwards, men had to practice their archery by law, so longbow skills were taken very seriously by the kings of the time. Now, the story that all longbows in England were made from churchyard yews, I think is false, because not all longbows were made of yew. It may have been the preferred wood, but not the exception. Elm, oak, hickory, ash, hazel or even maple could be used. And it's said that one yew tree can only provide enough wood for a handful of bows, 5 or 6. And this would have decimated yews in our churchyards very quickly, but as so many survive today, it must be false. And the armies of English archers would have ran out of longbows fast, but luckily they actually used yews from English and Irish forests and imported yew from Eastern Europe. And when the Mary Rose was driven from the seabed in the Solent in 1982, the archaeologists found 137 complete yew longbows and more than 3,000 arrows imported from Italy and Spain. I also read that medieval archers practised in an area known as Butts, Butts. And interestingly, many street names survive with Butts in the name, often near churches. And it also comes up in many place names, like Youghal in County Cork, which means Yewood, Powners in Galway, Pool by the Yew, Ewhurst in Surrey, and the person's name Ewan means born of yew. So the yew tree in Britain has been an extremely important tree for millennia and still is.